Hey everybody, it's Alex Ball with another episode of the No-Till Market Garden Podcast. On today's show, we sit down with Jonah Sloven of Sweet Hollow Organic Farm in Victor, Idaho. We dig deep on farming in an intentional agrihood, managing bindweed with cardboard, and crop-specific management tools. Let's get to the show.
Today's episode of the No-Till Market Garden Podcast is brought to you by Certified Naturally Grown. At the heart of sustainable ag is the belief that soil health and thriving ecosystems grow the very best food. Certified Naturally Grown is a grassroots certification program that recognizes direct market farmers using holistic methods and shows your customers that the products you bring to market are grown to the highest ecological standards. If you're looking for an affordable certification option that focuses on the thriving of local farms and foodways, you're going to want to check out CNG. Their peer-to-peer inspections create opportunities for farmers to connect, exchange knowledge, and build regional support between growers. Certify your produce, flowers, livestock, apiary, aquaponics, or mushroom operation today. Find out more at cngfarming.org. That's cngfarming.org. Today's episode is also brought to you by BCS America. BCS two-wheel tractors are designed and built in Italy, where small-scale farming has been a way of life for generations. Discover the beauty of BCS on your farm with PTO-driven implements for soil working, shredding cover crops, spreading compost, mowing under fences, clearing snow, and much more, all powered by a single gear-driven machine that's tailored to the size and scale of your operation. We have been using a BCS tractor on our farm since 2014, and it has saved the day and leveled the workload more times than I can count. And I find new ways to employ it every single season. To learn more, view sale pricing, or locate your nearest dealer, visit bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com. To learn more, view sale pricing, or locate your nearest dealer, visit bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com. All right, enjoy the show.
Jonah, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to chat with us about Sweet Hollow.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I've been a fan for a while, so it's exciting to be on the other side of things.
Well, yeah, we're super excited to have you. I know folks would love to hear more about your farm and kind of what you're up to out there in Idaho. So just give folks a little oversight. Where you're located, what zone you're in, and what kind of land you're working with.
So I run Sweet Hollow Farm. We're in Victor, Idaho. It's eastern Idaho, right along the Wyoming border. We're zone 4B. And we grow at 6,200 feet. So it's a pretty tough climate, a short season. Our last frost could be as late as mid-June, and our first frost could be mid-September. So it's definitely a sprint of a season. And yeah, we're growing on 3 acres. We've got 5 high tunnels. Some are quite large and fully automatic, and some are simple farmer-friend Caterpillar tunnels, but really trying to extend the season there. The farm is located in sort of an Agrihood. We're part of a urban farm, I guess, in a development area, which is it's awesome. It's got some pros and cons, but for us, it's really nice that our CSA members can walk over and pick up their shares each week and kind of build a connection that way.
Wow, that's super interesting. So how did you get involved with Agrihood? Have you been there from the very beginning, or is this something that's been going on for a while and you've moved in to this operation?
Yeah, so this is my 4th year on the farm. And, there's been farmers who've actually been on this site before us. And we're kind of at the point where we're experiencing some of the challenges that they have as well. But I started Sweet Hollow with a friend of mine, and now it's just me running things. But when we started, we saw that there was this opening in the farm here, and it's a really awesome deal. We trade 2 of our CSA shares that's our annual lease. So it was an easy way to get started with minimal risk. And farming had always been a passion of mine. I traveled and worked on some other farms, but didn't quite have a full season of experience when I began. But I figured this is too awesome of a deal to pass up. And, the the best experience is kind of doing it and figuring it out. And yeah, decided to go for it.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's super cool. So that development that you're farming in, how many homes are there? Is this kind of where you're located? Is this kind of a center of town area? How far are you from your markets? What's kind of the demographics of the area you're located in?
Yeah, so Victor, Idaho is a small town. I mean, it says 2,000 people on the sign. It's rapidly growing, as is this whole greater Teton Valley area. We are about 40 minutes from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, so a huge tourism epicenter. And we'll drive over and do a market over there. That's our one market we do right now. And we also do a CSA pickup at the same time, just to make it worth going over. So, but here the development is rapidly growing, and there's plans they're right now breaking ground and bringing in infrastructure to expand this neighborhood. So pros and cons, it's the area is changing, but also this has been the developer's plan for 20 years. So kind of as one of the newer people involved, I can't say that more homes is a bad idea. And it also is a great customer base for us. So there's plans to be like 150 homes is my guess, if I had to put a number on it. So it's going to be pretty large, but it's tastefully done. And the farm has always been sort of a main component of this community, as is sort of intentional design and its sustainability components as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Was the developer from the very beginning always looking to have ag intertwined with the development? Yeah,
it's always been part of it. Agriculture, some form of education as well. And yeah, it's great. The problem right now is we're really I'm trying to purchase the farm. I mean, not owning and pouring all this time and money and energy into infrastructure and improving the site. And I'll talk more about our no-till bed building. And yeah, that's just kind of wearing on me, not controlling our fate completely there. But yeah, the development supports the farm for sure. We just have sort of different ideas now of what the farmers need. I mean, I want more land and space than he initially has always had it in his master plan. So that's kind of where there's just a little tension right now.
Yeah, that makes total sense. But at least I don't hear a lot of developments even wanting to work with local ag or involve that at all. So I can definitely see at this point a little bit of pushback. Just kind of normal. It seems like. You were saying earlier that you have a pretty quick season. 4A, you said, correct?
4B.
4B. Okay, yeah. So for a pretty quick season, how many people are working on the farm in that amount of time? It sounds pretty intensive. So what's kind of your workload like?
Yeah. So this year I've got 2 full-time employees, which is awesome. Last year I was kind of leaning more towards the idea that part-time help was going to be better. People would have a better balance themselves, not get so burnt out. Obviously, it's physical job. But this year, my 2 full-time staff have been awesome. It's been so helpful to kind of let them take ownership and build our program and not have to start and stop jobs throughout the week, but kind of get into a good rhythm altogether. So I've got those are my paid employees, and we also do work share volunteers for our harvest days. So our harvest days are twice a week, and have about 4 or 5, kind of depending on the day in the week, volunteers that'll come just for that morning. And then they'll leave with sort of a half share equivalent of produce.
Nice. And are those people in the community where you live at?
Yeah. Most people live in Victor or our border town, Driggs, which is about 10 miles away. We've had people even drive over from Jackson, so 40 minutes. But it's great that people want to get involved and learn and take yeah, be involved with the community and local food production.
Yeah, for sure. You'd mentioned earlier that you have a mix of tunnels on your property. So with that really intense season, how long is your main production season for?
Yeah, so really so far my main season's focused around our CSA. So I do a 16-week CSA, and I'm really looking forward to pushing the season kind of these first couple years, as it seems like you've been doing the same thing, as so much infrastructure and time to build up all the necessary improvements to really grow year round or push it. So, just, within the last week, we finished our new 34 by 96 tunnel and still figuring out some of the kinks there, but hoping to grow year round someday. And another example, we just a year ago got a well put in. So we've been on public irrigation before that, which is great. It's a good water source, but it's super seasonal. It wouldn't come on until right about now, mid-May, and then shuts off, depending on how bad drought would be in the fall or early summer even. So having a well and enough space where it's makes sense to put in the time and the energy, getting that stuff built up now, I'm excited to really expand our offerings.
Yeah, the infrastructure is so expensive in the long. It just adds up so quickly. And the amount of time it takes, even not even just the financial cost, but the labor cost to take away from the farming in end of May right now to go and build a big tunnel. That's a lot of labor, a lot of time.
Yeah, it is, and I'm excited to have the farm be at a point where I'm focused on growing vegetables and not so much building and construction, but yeah, like I told you in our quick chat before, I feel good about the season. I think we're ahead of schedule. The weather's been cooperating, so feels like I'm catching my stride finally.
That's great. You were saying earlier that you're at about 6,000 feet elevation. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 6,200.
So with that, I had to guess that you have some really intense weather differences. I saw a photo of something a few weeks ago with some real intense snowfall, some heavy snow there.
Yeah, this was, I've been around this area for about 8 years, and this was one of the biggest winters we've had. And it just kept going and going and going. But yeah, our temperature swings are crazy. And with that elevation, we get really intense sun, which is a great thing sometimes. I mean, I think there's a ton of winter growing potential because of that, but the second the sun peeks out from behind a cloud or something, the greenhouses heat up quite quickly. And we're still in nights that are in the 30s, but during the day it's hot in the tunnel. So quite a lot of fluctuation, and I'm really trying to automate my tunnels, have automatic roll-up sides, definitely shutters and fans, just trying to be able to take some of the work out of balancing it out.
Yeah, and I can imagine with that sun coming up so quickly, like having to vent all those tunnels within a relatively short amount of time. Again, a lot of time and labor to get out there, a lot of money to get somebody having to automate it will just allow you to move to the next level.
Yeah, it's been definitely worth the investment. And yeah, there's within an hour sometimes of just being around, those fans are just constantly adjusting and kicking on, and it's cool to see what a little bit of technology can do.
Yeah, for sure. You had mentioned earlier, about 40 minutes from the main to next larger town. In your town of about 2,000, are there any other produce farmers there?
Yeah, surprisingly, there's 7 or 8 other operations. It blows me away, the food scene that we have over here in rural Idaho and Teton Valley. I mean, there's a handful of other awesome farms. There's cheese and meat producers. It's really cool, and something I want to explore more is building some sort of network and more collaboration, because it's really awesome. It's a good place to be a producer, and there's a fair bit of competition, but I think we've all kind of established ourselves, and I'm one of the newer farms, but yeah, that's also come with some benefits as well.
Yeah, that's a good transition. So you said, everyone kind of figuring out what crops they're doing, kind of figuring out their own business plans, and their own little niches. What type of things are you mainly producing? You do a CSA, so I'm guessing quite a bit of diversity for that. But what are kind of your main focuses?
Yeah, the CSA is definitely our focus. So I have about 85 members so far this year, and that's probably where I'm going to cap it. So trying to grow as much variety as I can for them. Definitely, I like to include greens mix or lettuce every week, and yeah, as much variety as I can within the seasonal restrictions. I also do a lot of tomatoes for wholesale accounts. That's kind of been something I found that is worth doing and easy to coordinate. That's kind of the other challenge with all this, is finding the time to fill those orders and deal with the communication. So we have had a pretty large standing order of tomatoes for one of the restaurants in town, and that's been an awesome outlet for us. And yeah, a few other small wholesale orders as well.
Okay, but it's really dialed in that CSA. So of that 85, how many of those folks live in the development they're hooked to?
In the development itself, and the area, like I said, is definitely growing. So some new names that I see, we haven't started pickups this year, so I'm not sure if they live in the neighborhood or not. I'd say 20 of those probably.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's only going to grow, which is exciting. That to me, that's just like as sort of full circle and really what small scale agriculture can be, where people walk over with their kids and get to see the farm, get to kind of build that relationship and pick up their share. And it just makes it that much more special for me as the grower, and I hope for them as the consumer as well.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you remove like those barriers, let's say like distance to the farm from the consumer. If the farm's only a 10-minute walk down to pick up the local vegetables, then you're making it just literally one step easier for the consumer to get that product.
Right, and then for us too, it's like hauling everything to market is exhausting. And I know it's a great way to sell and to grow your following, but to shorten the supply chain, just to make things easier for us, where it's cutting out all that transportation and loading and setting up. That's really the direction I want to go with this.
Yeah, Jonah, I keep hearing that echo from so many farmers I talk to, and even myself. We stopped doing our market. We've been there for almost a decade, and we stopped doing ours because then during COVID, I kind of like had a little moment to stop and look back, and I'm like, man, I'm in hauling tomatoes at market and setting up and all the direct competition, and after a while, you're like, man, is there an easy way to do this? This is kind of just running long after a certain time. So it sounds like you've really kind of, from an early standpoint, trying to nitz that and dial in on efficiency and also efficiency that works for you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So you're saying that right now you are going to one market. It's about 40 minutes away. What's that market called?
It's through our Slow Foods chapter. It's the Slow Foods People's Market.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's a little different. It's Wednesday afternoon, so we're kind of packing up around lunch, getting to be the hottest part of the day, which is tough for unloading and setting things up when it's super hot in summer. But yeah, then the market runs from 4 to 7, so we get a nice after work rush. And there's mixed vendors and food and music and drinks as well, so draws a nice little crowd. Makes for a quick turnaround for us, then packing up, driving back over. And then that next day, that Thursday, is our harvest for our next CSA pickup on farm. So it's a quick back to back, but it's fun. It's a good market.
Yeah. And are you usually running that, or do you have employees who run that market for you?
Yeah, it's a we're going to all kind of tag team it. I'll definitely start off and get people feeling good and comfortable, and would love to give them some of that responsibility so I can stay on farm and handle kind of keeping everything else running. But it's a team effort for sure. We'll send 2 people over.
Okay, really? At one time?
Yep. Yeah. Because I do the CSA pickup there as well. So half of the market stand is, we have a clipboard with our customers' names, and kind of things are packed separately. And so then they'll come to the side of the market and pick up their share, while kind of the other half is the market stand. And when, both people kind of help balance out and restock and check people out, and a lot going on, but got to make it most bang for our buck for our time being over there.
Yeah, totally make it as efficient as possible. Come in, knock it out, and head back out. So it sounds like a pretty busy Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Nice. So you said you're then back on the farm, taking care of production. Maybe you can walk me through like a basic bed flip on your farm. How do you manage no-till on your property?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot to unpack in this one. We, when I started off farming, I was super interested into no-till and sort of the whole market garden, JM style intensive growing, mostly because of our sort of space limitation. It just seemed like the way to go. And we've kind of run into some issues, mostly with our weed pressure, really horrible perennials, mostly bindweed that's just been relentless. So I've kind of split production into a few different styles. So in our fields, we kind of we do till and do more sort of row cropping. And then inside, we kind of have an interior fence where all of our high tunnels are. And so all of those are no-till, and we've had really great success with doing cardboard and compost. And that's worked really well for our high tunnels, where it's kind of the most high dollar real estate. So for in those areas, the bed flip is, and mostly those are longer season crops too. So we're doing a lot of interplanting, which is awesome, to not use landscape fabric for tomatoes and stuff like that. I mean, we can sneak in lettuces, beets, a lot of quicker, closer spacing crops in between tomatoes, along with basil and stuff like that. But for bed flips, it's getting out the crop residue, depending on what that is, and maybe thin layer of compost or tarping if there's time, maybe using the tilther or just a rake, depending on what's going in next. And then, getting ready to direct seed or transplant. So kind of standard there. And then for in the field, we would come back through with a tiller or something just to get the bed surface ready, and seed or transplant again.
So also, what's your base soil type like there? Is it sandy, clay? What are you working with?
Yeah, it's kind of loamy.
So with intense heat during the day, do you have issues with retaining moisture in your soils? Is that kind of what pushed you more towards the no-till in these environments? Try to hold on to that a little more.
We have pretty good moisture retention. Really, the no-till was the weed pressure, and I've been doing. I got pretty involved with some grants and even some research projects with Western SARE to really look at this cardboard and compost combination, because I see a ton of content out there on the internet, and I really had a lot of questions about what was actually happening, and bringing in that much compost and applying it so heavily. I had a lot of questions there, and also it's super expensive to put down that amount of compost and even cardboard if you're buying it commercially. So have some ongoing research projects as well.
Today's episode of the No-Till Market Garden Podcast is brought to you by Farmer's Friend. In a world where the threat of food insecurity is quickly becoming the new norm, Farmer's Friend exists to equip, educate, and inspire growers to change the world through regenerative agriculture. Small farms are the future, and the future is now. If you need quality tools and supplies for your vegetable or flower operation, check out their growing selection of innovative and affordable tunnels, tools, tarps, and much more. Here at my home farm, we rely heavily on Farmer's Friend for our production. We have 3 of their Caterpillar tunnels. We use the silage tarps for occultation. Their row covers have gotten us through hard winters. And of course, the Quick Cut Greens Harvester has sped up our baby greens harvest tremendously. Visit farmersfriend.com/no-till today. That's farmersfriend.com/no-till. Or visit the link in the show notes and get free shipping on your entire order. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rimmel Greenhouses.
Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or your family's harvest, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment that you need for a harvest that you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are designed for durability and offer the quality that you need to grow productively year-round. Visit rimmelgreenhouses.com to get a quote today.
If I may editorialize for a second, I own a Rimmel tunnel. I love it. We built it ourselves, and I really appreciated the quality of the tunnel as well as the customer service we received in the process. So make sure to check them out. All right, back to the show.
So is kind of your idea with compost and compost building, or with embed building, is it laying down the cardboard to smother out and then piling up compost on top of it to smother the weeds out and create new beds? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's worked the best in the high tunnels because we can really establish a perimeter and been using pretty thick cardboard slip sheets from a brewery. They had a nice collection of them and they were clean, no ink or tape or staples. So being able to establish a perimeter and then lay that on nice and thick and then kind of wood chips around that. And then, yeah, exactly. Cardboard down, depending on kind of the plan for it, how thick it'll be, and then compost on top. And really, what we found works the best for a new plot is something that's aggressive, obviously, with its own growth, like tomatoes or squash has worked really well. And then that you don't need to put that many holes into the cardboard either initially. Because wherever you're going to put a hole, that bindweed is finding its way back up. So finding the balance between getting your plant roots into the native soil while still using that cardboard as a biodegradable weed mat.
Gotcha. So you're using the cardboard as a weed mat, compost on top to hold it down, and then pushing the plant through both the root ball into the native soil underneath it.
Yep. And it's been a learning curve for sure. But now in one of these large tunnels, this is our 3rd season of growing in it after we initially built the beds this way. And it's the progression and transition is amazing. It's so nice in there that the compost has come back to life. The cardboard's broken down and we can direct seed carrots in there, no problem. And they're just perfect.
And how long do you think it took from, let's say, the initial cardboard placing, the bed building, until you think you could direct seed, the carrot or direct seed a crop into that bed?
Yeah, a year.
Okay.
Because we're using thick cardboard. I mean, I'll share some photos with you of our bindweed before, but it's worth doing and doing it right. So really thick. And then it does take some time before things kind of come back to balance. And so a year, and it gets better over time.
Okay. But trying to knock out that initial flood of bindweed and have you found, has that been pretty successful of knocking out that the planting of bindweed?
Yeah. And there's stuff that pops up still, but it's manageable and it's weak. It's stringy. It's nothing like our other field spots or areas that haven't been treated like this.
Yeah, that's a very intense technique. Like I imagine they use a lot of compost, a lot of inputs. Is compost expensive out there where you're at?
We're kind of middle of the ground. I wish we had a better source, but at least I can get an organic product that I'm not worried about any residual herbicide or anything like that. But it's It's about $40 a yard, and freight. Yeah, everything's getting more expensive, but it's, and the amount that we use, it's definitely adds up. And yeah, that's why I've been another reason really looking towards grants as another way to kind of fund this transition.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're pushing $40 a yard, if you can get a little bit of support on that, that could save quite a bit. So you were saying, with that system, it's predominantly, or early on, it's predominantly a transplant system. Do you find yourself using more transplants in your production? We all direct seed the things you have to direct seed, but are transplants to make up a large portion of your property?
Yeah, that combined with the shorter season transplants are a great way to kind of get ahead and get ahead of the weeds as well. But we'll do a lot of direct seeded stuff as well. So in my field blocks, I've also gotten pretty into those older cultivating tractors like the Planet Junior and the Tillmore as well. So it's funny that that's kind of just the two systems that are developing on my farm together. But that sort of tooling has been super helpful for dealing with our weed pressure as well, and being able to focus on production and help with some of the direct seeded stuff as well.
Yeah, and for folks who don't know, would you mind describing the Tillmore and kind of how you use that tool?
Yeah, so the Planet Juniors were super popular back in the 50s or something, before really, as far as I understand, before herbicide was popular, when a lot of people were kind of homesteading and running smaller home gardens and stuff like that. And when the primary tool for weed control was cultivating. So there's a ton of this old equipment, which is really fun to go and collect and look for and craft together. But they're a two-wheel tractor similar to a BCS, but they're lighter and they have much better clearance. So they're designed to straddle crops even. And it's got a simple pin on the implement, so it's easy to switch things out, but simple toolbars that have different tines or tooling that you pull behind. And then so now Tillmore's come along fairly recently and recreated all this stuff and even advanced it. And there's a lot of innovation for small farm tooling there, and it's pretty cool to see. So basket weeders, finger weeders, all that stuff designed for small row crop systems and not having to have a huge cultivating tractor. So it really is practical for a small scale. And our field blocks are, small. We probably have, it's probably like 200 by 200 is this main block we're working in now. And those tractors are perfect for in there.
Yeah, totally. They're very human scale and working, quick, easy turnarounds. It's so much different than trying to. I kind of feel like if you weren't, on an LSG or a small ride-on tractor, there were no cultivating options for that. That, let's say 2-3 acre market garden or a truck farm style production. And I feel like and those two-wheel tractors worked so well for so many crops. I often think if you're producing like a cabbage crop or let's say onions or certain things on a larger scale, I'm like, oh yeah, we definitely use a two-wheel tractor system. They're fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. Next week, we're finally uncovering most of our brassicas and early season transplants. They've been hooped and covered with row cover, so I'm going to uncover them and run the Planet Juniors through them. And excited to see, because that's been a learning curve as well. But it's a little bit different of a bed prep. It's row crop spacing, so trying to keep everything consistent and not really building beds. So we've really got two separate systems.
Well, that's fantastic, because then you can really dial in and put crops where they need to be at specifically. And I feel like you can really just dial in and do what works best for that crop at that time, and give what's needed to those hoop house high value salad greens and crops need a lot of attention, and then do what you need to do in the row crop system. What kind of things are you doing specifically? What kind of crops are you growing specifically in the row crop system, or are you doing everything in both?
The row crops, I mean, like you said, the cabbages, brassicas, our kale, broccoli, cauliflower, chard, collards, all that's perfect there. It's standard. We do that's on 30 inches. So it takes up more space, but it lets you get in there and keep it clean. And the plants, it's great spacing for that. Open up, keep airflow and the weed pressure down. And then, all of our garlic and onions are on that row cropping system as well. And that's standard 15-inch spacing, which then is the same for like any field lettuces, beets, kohlrabies, fennel, green onions. And then anything we're going to direct seed pretty much is also on that 15-inch spacing. Okay,
cool. And are you producing all these transplants yourself, or do you source them from somewhere else?
Yeah, we do all the transplants here. First greenhouse tunnel that we really improved and got to be automated with a heater and shutter was our little prop house. So that's 20 by 48 feet. And it's a great little space. It's double wall inflated. So still pumping quite a bit of propane in there this early season to get things started. But it's great. And I finally got to try Vermont compost mix this year.
Nice.
And absolutely worth the hype. Best transplants I've ever grown.
Really? That good?
Yeah, it was, I mean, cabbages, kales looked so healthy. Tomatoes were awesome. It's a good product for sure, but quite expensive to get it to Idaho.
I could imagine, but it sounds like it's worth the cost.
I think so.
Okay.
It's, for me, it's just, spring is anything you can do to take some of the questions and some of the room for error out and the challenges, because this is hard enough as it is. I'm willing to spend money on things like that can help me get an awesome product to market, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you have such an intense season, if you can just increase production by 1 or 2%, just the small measures, you have to do that to intensify that time period. So you were saying earlier, you used using road cover in the fields, some cat tunnels. With all the intense snowfall, and I don't know if you have wind issues there as well. What kind of structures are you using for hoop houses?
So our main hoop houses, I've been going through Mulch Produce, if you're familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And I love those guys. They're, we'll say if it's your first tunnel you're building, their instructions are lacking, but their customer support is great. And I'm on the phone, especially during times where we're building the tunnels. I work with Jeffrey at the Iowa store, and I call him multiple times a day. And it's, my crew laughs at it. If we're not talking to Jeffrey or putting tech screws in, it's not really a day on the farm. So their customer support's great, and their tunnels are super beefy. We get a lot of snow, but with the Gothic style hoops that we get from them, it really all sloughs off, and I don't have a ton of snow load, especially because our snow comes pretty dry and light most of the time, but definitely a lot of wind. So those tunnels have been great. We have a pretty good bedrock layer, like 18 inches or 2 feet down. So have had to get an excavator in and dig out each post hole and then put some cement in. So it's a project for sure, but the end product is a great tunnel that I don't have to worry about. So,
well, yeah, beefy tunnel. You got to dig into bedrock, cement it in. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Now just looking back at our earlier conversation, I can just see, especially in springtime, I can't imagine to be out there, doing this much work with these tunnels. That's a lot of work in the spring.
Yep. It's a sprint.
Yeah, I can really see that now. So in the environment, I I know different from the tunnel out to the field, but what type of pests are you dealing with at your farm?
Yeah. With our extreme winter, we're luckier compared to a lot of other growers. With our pest pressure, really the main problem for us is flea beetle. So keeping a lot of stuff will always stay covered, but once, like the kales and cabbages get pretty well established, then we can uncover that stuff. But keeping radish, turnips, arugula, some baby greens always covered for the flea beetle. And then otherwise, we get an early and late some deer pressure. So this year we put up a deer fence, which was another bit of infrastructure that had to invest time and money into, but went with a 3D electric fence, and so far so good.
Nice. Yeah, those like a deer coming through there can just obliterate, especially on a small scale, and do some nasty damage. So I'm glad to hear that you've been able to restrict that as much as possible with that fencing.
Yeah, first day this season that I was kind of planning to put all of our transplants out and start doing that. Brought everything out, got the crew out there, and then we see 2 deer like behind one of our little structures already there. So plans changed. We had to put up the fence, which might as well do it right. That was the time to build it. So
yeah, there'd be nothing worse than putting out all those fresh plants and come back the next day and just be obliterated.
Yeah. And I guess the other pest we have is voles. This was a crazy bad vole year. Like, I don't know if that's a problem for you guys, but in years past, I've had same thing, put out starts and they just mow off the top of them. But got 2 little farm cats last fall, and they're finally paying their keep. So they've been patrolling pretty well.
Yeah, we get voles pretty bad at our place. They don't come into the fields that much. They kind of like to hide out on the edge of tunnels and stuff like that. But we have a farm cat as well, and he usually keeps us on some level of control. So something it's mainly animal pressure at your place, not as much as insect pest pressure.
Yeah, flea beetle, and also we do get aphids, especially late season, but nothing that's really been too crippling.
That's fantastic. So on the site, and you're talking about you've building the tunnels or building these fences. What type of infrastructure do you have on site as well? Do you have like a wash pack, a barn? How do you manage your farm there?
When we took over this farm, there's a few simple structures on site already, a few little sheds, and then our wash pack, which is just an A-frame with a nice tarp on top. And unfortunately, that collapsed this winter. So yeah, I've got actually tomorrow this crew of builders that's working on a house in the neighborhood. I've become friends with them. They're going to pop over and see if they can't fix this thing. But yeah, one of the main beams and a few of the supporting kind of rafters collapsed under the snow load. So we'll see on that. But really, it's small sheds and sort of that. And I'm excited about the idea of down the line kind of having everything housed in a large barn where I can have more even climate controlled wash pack area for some 4-season growing. And also hoping to have some dedicated event space and classroom space and place where we can do some value-added activities there as well.
Yeah, I saw on your site that you've done some few farm table dinners there in the past, some workshops.
Yeah, we do a mix of different educational activities, workshops. A lot of people like the no-till workshops we do, where we kind of walk through our process for using the cardboard. That's been really, a lot of home growers have found that useful. And also, a handful of dinners. So I have a couple of friends that I've worked with and bring in chefs, and that's been a great way to get people onto the farm and stay connected, build our community and our product. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You have the space to have folks out there. And yeah, it kind of just shows how cool it is you're already linked up with this development as well. It sounds like a real community feel there on the farm.
Yeah, it's a good spot. And great way to build our customer base and keep this from being more than just a one interaction, but build our customers and that connection in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. So I believe you said earlier you're in your fourth season at the current property. What are some of your not only financial goals, maybe some personal goals for your operation in the next few years?
Yeah, definitely. So at a broad level, I'd love to get the farm to a point where it's supporting me and a livable wage. Right now, I've gotten to the point where I'm paying myself, which is great, and it's a first step, but it's not a complete salary. So mixing in grant work and education and value-added activities, being able to support myself is for sure a financial goal. And I'm really looking to hit that $100,000 in sales kind of benchmark. I think, yeah, I'll be excited when we get to that point. Just it feels like a checkpoint, even though it's an arbitrary number. It's
but it feels good.
Yeah,
it's a number that feels good.
That's right. Nice and clean and large.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I totally understand about that, not being able to pay yourself that full wage yet. I got my first paycheck, like my real first real paycheck, like last year, and it felt amazing. It wasn't much, but it just feels good to have something that's, it's a check with your name on it from your farm. Always feels fantastic.
Yeah, it's huge. We put in so much time and work and money. So getting to the point where that's starting to come back around and take care of us.
Yeah, we have to. We have to find ways not only to be sustainable in our businesses, but to pay ourselves somewhat with sustainable wage that we can keep on coming back and doing this good work year after year. So now we're kind of moving on to the final last two questions. It's been so great chatting with you. Second to last question, really it's our open platform for our guests. What's on your farmer heart? Is there anything that's been weighing on you? Anything that you want to share with a kind of open platform for you to talk about anything, ad related?
Yeah, that's, there's so much that I'm sure we could go on chatting about, but I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me in this is as a new farmer myself, just not being too idealistic at the beginning and, doing what you have to do to make things work. And I know this is the no-till growers, but, being able to look at the situation and understand tools available and the context for everything and being okay with changing your plans and being open to learning and evolving your farm as you go.
I totally agree with you on that, Jonah. You can't be dogmatic about it. You have to figure out what works best for your soil at that time and what works best for your business. And like you said earlier, we're always evolving, and the farm now won't be the same in 10 years as it will be in 20 and 30. So you have to do what works best to make yourself, make it to that 20, 30 year mark and, get the crop in the ground and get to market.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it can be super easy to say, I'm never doing anything to disturb the soil. And even if I broad fork it, I've disturbed the soil. Well, the water's not draining, the soil's compacted. We got to do something to alleviate this issue.
Right. And yeah, there's a lot of those things are fixable down the line, or when kind of you get, like I said, as we've built up our no-till space in our greenhouses, allowing us to stay in production and keeping the bills paid. Important to be flexible.
No, that's a great message. And I think that's a good message for a lot of our listeners to remember it. And I think it's easy too, especially when you see other farmers doing something. It's like, oh, they're doing something, so I should be doing this. But their contexts, their systems are totally different than your soil and where you're at. And you have to make sure it works best for your land and for your customers first.
Exactly.
And the last question, kind of wrap this up with, is how do you find balance, in your life with work and how do you take care of yourself, really? Yeah,
that's a challenge. Always feels like there's an endless amount of jobs to be done and you're on the clock with weather. And this year I've noticed that having my crew and having a consistent schedule really pays itself back to me as well. I'm able to make more realistic plans and goals for the day, for the week, and having a schedule that is the same each day. We try and end with them at 4:00. So then I'll kind of putz around and close up and maybe spend another 30 minutes or so there. But I'm really trying to get out, leave the farm 4:35. If it's wacky weather, I'll still come back in the evening to close up. But having a clear end to the day, just because, like I said, there's always more that could be done. And I guess for me, I'm lucky that I have a partner who's super supportive of the farm. She works as a director of a nonprofit. They're also kind of in the food scene as well. But, having her help and her support, I wouldn't be able to do this without somebody who understands the commitment and the work and the time that goes into that. And all the strings that are attached there. So having some help and support at home, and then trying to be able to get out and enjoy this beautiful place and scenery, kind of keeps me sane.
Yeah, for sure. Setting those boundaries so you can take time to be with those you need to be with. What do you do there for fun? What's your go-to?
Well, today I'm super excited. After we get done, we're going to go out and look for some morel mushrooms.
Wow, that's a great day. It's a great spring Sunday morning.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's been warm, a little drier than normal, so we'll see if anything's popping up.
Well, Jonah, that sounds like a great day. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and chat with me about your farm.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. Have a great day. A huge thanks again to Jonah Sloven for sitting down and chat with me about Sweet Hollow Organic out in Victor, Idaho. If you want to learn more about them, check out their Insta or their website. Or to learn more about their SARE Research Bindweed no-till trials, the links will all be in the show notes. Before we wrap up, I just want to give a huge shout out to the entire no-till growers crew for making this season just so spectacular. From Mimi and Natalie with just amazing back-to-back episodes every week, to Jackson and Michael making me sound much, much better than I really am. And finally to Jesse for giving me this opportunity to get on the mic and chat with fellow farmers. It's been a great first season of podcasting, and we'll be back next year with some more no-till grower interviews. Thank you all for listening to me. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.
Hey, you all, Farmer Jesse here, just jumping in real quick to, first, thank you all for another amazing podcast season and your continued and growing support. But I also want to give a huge shout out to Mimi, Alex, and Natalie for all their work this year and for taking on a really tall task. Like when I started this podcast, I had just a handful of people listening to my first 10 episodes. For this season's new hosts, though, they jumped into a podcast that gets roughly 10,000 downloads per episode with nearly 2 million total downloads. So that's not a small feat with no small amount of pressure. And I felt like they just absolutely smashed it. I loved the guests they chose and the questions they asked. So thank you to Alex, Natalie, and Mimi for their work. And also a huge thank you to Michael Sellis, our editor, who does not get enough credit for all his hard work. And of course, my partner at no-tillgrowers.com, Jackson Roulette, who works feverishly behind the scenes, keeping this podcast and all of our work moving along smoothly. Thank you to all of our show sponsors this year, and a wildly big thank you to all of you for listening and supporting the show, whether that is through buying a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or a hat or other merch through no-tillgrowers.com, or through our Patreon page. That is truly what keeps this show alive, objective, and growing. And at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one Patreon level to another, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs this week to Tim J, Greg Solish, Closter Farm and Livestock Co., Rob Soma, Sean at All About the Garden, Joseph Sanguinetti, Bill Altman, Ian at Grindstone Farms, Danny Rodriguez, Alex Savatsky, Pear Tree Hill Farm, Steve Burr, Stephanie and Alex, Stephen Smith, Jason Ruel, Ojai Roots, Scott Harris, Earth Care Farmer Jane Murner Cynical, Clement, Judson Taylor, Grown Up Farm, Bob and Ann Patton of Hexhamshire Organics, Jared Kirst at Rivendell Farms, Dan Brisebois, Jay McCombs, Tim Baldwin, Steve Larson, Fiona and Donnie of Firefly Farm, and Jen Lawrence. Huge shout out to everyone who supports our show in whatever way that you can. And that's it from me. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you again soon. Like real soon. Bye.